It comes as the Trump administration has also announced new tariffs that could raise the price of tomatoes at the grocery store.
It's imposing a 17% tariff on most tomatoes imported from Mexico. That decision from the Trump White House is already in effect.
Dramatic shakeup. The Trump administration has torched a 30-year-old trade agreement that slapped a 17% tariff on fresh tomatoes from Mexico.
It happened quietly. No breaking news alert, no primetime announcement, no politicians standing at a podium. One morning, trucks lined up at the U.S.-Canada border, and the gates simply didn't open. Hundreds of trailers filled with fresh California tomatoes, produced that would have fed millions, were stopped with a single Canadian ruling. Drivers waited, farmers waited, and America waited. But Canada didn't blink. This wasn't just a delay. It was the start of a collapse no one saw coming. What followed in the next 48 hours would shake the backbone of American agriculture, rewrite decades of trade, and open the door for Mexico to seize a $12 billion advantage that Washington may never recover from. The shock began with a simple explanation from the Canadian Food Inspection Agency: pesticide residue, quality concerns, routine oversight. But behind the clean wording was something far more calculated. Canada had already built a replacement. Weeks earlier, it finalized nearly $180 million in agreements with greenhouse operations in British Columbia and Ontario. These facilities weren't experimental. They were built to replace almost exactly the volume of tomatoes California had supplied for years. By the time American farmers realized what was happening, it was already too late. At the Peace Bridge, 150 truckloads sat motionless. At the Ambassador Bridge, 89 more waited, refrigeration units humming, produce slowly losing value by the hour. The smell of fresh tomatoes turned into the scent of money evaporating. Behind every truckload was a family, a mortgage, a loan, a small town dependent on its farms. The U.S. tomato industry wasn't just taking a hit, it was bleeding out. For decades, American farmers believed that trade was stable, predictable, guaranteed. Canada was the closest, most reliable buyer. Every year, $340 million flowed from Canadian shelves back into U.S. farming communities. That revenue kept schools alive, funded rural hospitals, paid off equipment loans, supported 2,400 hardworking families. And with a single ruling, that lifeline snapped. Farmers describe it as a punch that knocked the whole community off its feet. Tom Richardson, who had farmed outside Fresno for 30 years, said it best. The tomatoes weren't rejected because they were bad. They were rejected because Canada didn't need us anymore. But while American farmers were absorbing the hit, something even bigger was brewing further south. Something that would turn this crisis from painful to catastrophic. Mexico wasn't watching the chaos. Mexico was preparing to take over. In less than a year, more than $12 billion poured into Mexico's agricultural sector. And this wasn't random investment. It was a coordinated move by European agribusiness giants looking for stability, speed, and cheaper long-term partners. Mexico offered everything the U.S. no longer did: consistency, efficiency, and a willingness to innovate without years of red tape. Sinaloa, Sonora, and Baja California became the front lines of a transformation that moved at lightning speed. $7 billion went into high-tech greenhouses and hydroponic systems that delivered perfect produce year-round, while using nearly 40% less water. Another $3 billion strengthened ports, highways, and cold storage logistics. The rest went into training, research, and workforce development. In just 8 months, premium Mexican tomatoes were already appearing in European supermarkets at prices up to 25% lower than U.S. exports. European buyers, tired of American shipping delays and unpredictable policy shifts, made a clean break. They looked to Mexico, and they didn't hesitate. The shift wasn't just economic, it was strategic. After the energy crisis caused by dependence on Russian gas, the European Union vowed never to rely on one unstable supplier again. So when American agriculture showed signs of unreliability, tariffs, trade fights, border inspections, sudden bans, Europe noticed. Mexico offered the opposite: predictability. For the first time in decades, America wasn't the default leader. It was the risky option. While Europe pivoted, California farming towns began to fall apart. Watsonville became one of the hardest hit examples. The processing plant that once ran 24/7 now sat in darkness. Trucking companies that relied on border shipments cut staff down to skeleton crews. Mechanics, fertilizer suppliers, repair shops, the diners where drivers once stopped for breakfast. The entire ecosystem of rural life began collapsing in slow motion. Economists call it the multiplier effect. Locals call it ruin. When a dollar disappears at the farm gate, nearly two vanish across the town. And that's exactly what happened. In farming regions, unemployment surged by more than 30%. Property values fell nearly 20% in 6 months. Schools saw enrollment drop so quickly that entire programs were shut down. Teachers left, districts merged, and long-standing family businesses closed after generations. Hospitals felt the strain next. Rural medical centers, already operating on thin margins, reduced services, cut hours, and in some areas shut down entire departments. The population was falling, bills were piling up, and the community safety net was failing. What began as a tomato dispute had spiraled into a full agricultural crisis, and Mexico was still accelerating. Its new facilities weren't just bigger, they were smarter. Greenhouses packed with sensors monitored everything from soil composition to sunlight. Automated watering and climate systems adjusted conditions with scientific precision. Predictive analytics calculated demand weeks ahead, allowing growers to plan harvest with near-perfect efficiency. American farmers, meanwhile, battled drought, unpredictable weather, labor shortages, and aging infrastructure designed for a world that no longer existed. The technology gap widened every month. U.S. agriculture once led the world in innovation, but underfunding, slow approval processes, and political turf wars stalled progress for years. Europe and China brought their most advanced systems into Mexico, skipping the bureaucracy the U.S. struggled with. Dr. Patricia Williams, a former California researcher now working in Europe, summed up the frustration. "We have the technology. America just won't let us use it fast enough." Mexico had no such hesitation, and it showed. Even America's distribution network worked against it. Processing plants and rail lines built for massive agricultural output were now underused and expensive to maintain. Trucking fleets built for heavy border traffic sat idle. Companies specializing in cross-border produce shipments reported their business collapsing by more than 60%. Meanwhile, U.S. supermarkets made the quiet switch that hurt the most. Shelves once filled with California-grown tomatoes now held Mexican produce. Not because retailers wanted to change, but because customers demanded affordability, reliability, and quality. Mexican suppliers offered all three. American farmers felt the betrayal deeply. For generations, they believed that long-standing trade relationships meant protection. But when Canada closed its doors, those relationships proved fragile. Farmers who had financed their futures on yearly harvest guarantees found themselves without buyers. Banks that once considered agriculture safe now demanded collateral that most families simply did not have. Lending restrictions tightened. Loan delinquencies in tomato-producing regions surged 78%. Bankruptcy filings jumped 45% in just 8 months. And those numbers don't even capture the farmers who quietly walked away, unable to pay attorneys or restructure debts. The collapse spread far beyond economics. It moved into identity, legacy, and community. Families began abandoning land their grandparents had farmed. Homes were sold, equipment repossessed, dreams discarded. Skilled workers left for other states or other countries. A way of life was disappearing. And all of it started with one decision at the Canadian border. The tomato trucks that sat in silence paint a picture much bigger than one crop. They reveal how vulnerable American agriculture has become. $340 million in exports gone, more than 24,000 farming families on the brink. Agricultural unemployment up 34%, loan delinquencies up 78%, bankruptcies rising 45%. But beyond every statistic is a human story, a family trying to survive a system that no longer protects them. Canada's ban wasn't just a rejection. Mexico's rise wasn't just an expansion. Europe's shift wasn't just a trade adjustment. Together they form a warning. If tomatoes can fall this quickly, What happens when the same pressure hits wheat? Soybeans? Corn? These are crops that feed the world, crops that anchor America's economy, crops that influence global stability. And today, America's grip on them is slipping. The world is changing faster than U.S. agriculture can adapt. The question now is painfully simple. Will America rebuild its farming future before the next crisis hits, or will this collapse be the first chapter in a much bigger fall?